SWE Bench was one of these old benchmarks that came out. That was one of the first to measure ability to write code for models, and it was based on diffs. Kind of GitHub issue, kind of fix this bug or implement this thing. It had a lot of issues. A lot of stuff was wrong, incorrect, very limited. So because of that, SWE-Bench Verified was the successor, and that's been kind of the main coding benchmark for a while. It's still very limited, only Python. So this is why there were a couple of approaches like SWE-Bench multilingual or multi-SWE-Bench. You can tell I'm a benchmark nerd. And those are very good for looking at like full stack, more representative. They're still kind of very myopic, I think, small issue focused. And with today's like long horizon, spec-driven development workflows, I don't think they're appropriate. That's why I'm going to see if I can whip up a new benchmark in a couple of days. But one of the main problems with these benchmarks is contamination. So another problem is saturation. And so people think that, oh, these benchmarks are getting saturated, which means that they're all nearing very high scores, and the differences between different models seem like rounding errors. And it's really hard to differentiate, is this model better than that one? Because one's 98.6 and one's 98.7. And is that even statistically significant, right? So there's been some attempts to create harder problems. And so that's one issue. But the other issue is contamination. Contamination means that the made it into the training data.
So if we made a
website, are good.
So if I have a website called How to Ace SWE-Bench, and it got really popular, and on the next training round that website gets sucked in, then it will naturally understand.
It goes beyond that. It goes to like having the actual having the actual exam, the actual questions and the answers in the training data memorized. So it's not even like, oh, these labs are training these models to perform well on benchmarks. This is the term called benchmaxing, right? Which means that they perform well on the benchmarks because they were kind of tuned to do well on that, but it may not generalize to day-to-day work. They're actually just memorizing the answers. They're memorizing the questions and the answers because they're publicly available. And so that is one of the challenges of these open benchmarks, is that if you want a benchmark to be reproducible and transparent, everybody can run the benchmark, you're going to put it on the internet. What do models train on? Everything. They train on the internet, right? So if it's out there, models will train on it. And so that is the problem with contamination. There have been a couple of interesting approaches. One is live code bench, where they have like live issues that are pulled in real time, and so they're not going to make it into model training data. I think there's still maybe the issue of tool use, and maybe they could browse the internet and still find, but that was one approach. Another one is like these private data sets. So OpenAI has developed SWE-Bench Pro, and they have a public set, which is publicly available stuff, and this is what you can run on your own, and you can publish your own. Hey, this is our SWE-Bench Pro score. But to get an official SWE-Bench Pro, you have to go through OpenAI, because only they have the questions and the answers. And that's an interesting answer. I mean, it certainly kind of bypasses the contamination problem, but it centralizes it, and we just have to trust OpenAI. And I don't think it's the best solution. I'm starting to like brainstorm some interesting ideas for other solutions. But so this is the problem. OpenAI started looking into SWE-Bench Verified, and it seems like there's been some massive contamination unleashed. And what we thought was saturation is actually contamination. Like, it's not that these models are getting so good that they're doing really good on this benchmark. It's that they're memorizing the questions and the answers. So it's a huge, I don't know, I call it a scandal just because I'm a benchmark nerd, but yeah, it is a big thing.
Well, so a long time ago, I was doing a machine learning project on student performance. And in machine learning, the equivalent problem would be called the target leakage. And so the issue we were trying to figure out, what made students successful in their class. And one of the variables we had was when they registered for the class. And I thought, okay, my hypothesis for that variable is maybe students who planned ahead and registered, 3 weeks before the class started as opposed to the day before. Maybe they were more motivated. That's my hypothesis. It turns out that negative values of this variable were really, really above passing the class. But it turns out that the reason they were so predictive is because the registrar was like retroactively registering people who had audited the class, but at some point knew they were going to pass. So they were like retroactively registering them, and then they would like have 100% pass rate because they already did. The problem is you wouldn't have known that at the time you made the prediction. And so that's called target leakage. And so that's kind of the similar thing we're seeing in benchmarks, is that you have to think, what do I actually know when I'm taking a real task for the first time, right? When you're looking at someone's code who's not on the internet, that is at a private corporate repository, but has interesting challenges, right? That is what you really want to know is worth doing. That's an interesting point with OpenAI, that it's private. Now, obviously they could say, well, we did the best and you have to trust us.
I think that's this. I mean, they're obviously championing that solution, but I don't think it's going to fly. I mean, yes, in OpenAI, which then you will be the sole benchmark bearer for the world. Do you think Anthropic's going to go for that?
No. Yeah, they're going to say, well, on our benchmark, which is also equally honest.
So, yeah, we have to keep our eye out for new approaches. I actually saw this call for benchmarks, like a $3 million fund. Like, this is a huge problem. Like, I wanted to create benchmarks a year ago, and I thought, who am I to create a benchmark, right? When you've got these giant labs creating benchmarks, I thought the industry would self-correct. Here we are a year later, we're still dealing with this issue that we don't have good benchmarks. So now there's a lot of attention on this.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing your proposed solution to this, and maybe this is a good preview of what's to come. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. I am not a benchmark nerd, so I'm out of the space. I'm trusting you to see what's out. What did you think about that clip? I hope it was useful. Check out the link in the description for the full episode, and we have new episodes coming out every single week, sometimes several times a week, about the latest AI news. We're doing a deep dive into OpenClaw soon. Check out our Substack. Follow us on all the different social media programs. Ask us questions, and check out our Discord, where we have lots of good AI chat discussions. Links are all in the description. See you next time.